Almost a year ago, my brother and I had an idea. What if we built Helldivers 2 in Minecraft? That would be fun. We are both pretty good at Minecraft, and we love Helldivers. But there is a problem. Ever since installing Helldivers, we've played Minecraft very little. Helldivers literally took over our life. And to make it worse, we've only ever played Minecraft in survival. Doing a project like this would be hard. We would need to learn new mods like Axiom, something I'm not familiar with. So because of that, we shelved the idea. But recently, both of our channels have seen success from the Helldivers community. Our motivation is revitalized, so we decided to start the project. But where to begin? There are many iconic events in Helldivers to choose from. The Meridia Super Colony, the creation of the DSS, the return of the Illuminate. But one event is more memorable than all of them, Malevelon Creek. The name alone triggers most Helldivers. The Battle of Malevelon Creek was one of the most intense battles in the game. Our choice was obvious. We need to build an entire mission from Malevelon Creek, but there is another problem. Malevelon Creek was not available for mission selection, so gathering references would be difficult. Because of this, we had to select missions on similar planets, but not exactly the same. We took lots of screenshots from these other planets. Once we felt comfortable with the amount of references, we decided to start by building a blueprint world. Here we can make structures that we can copy and paste on the actual map. Red Monster Thing decided to start with the automatons. I decided to help. Look away, don't look at that. Red Monster Thing is way better at building automatons, and these designs aren't even the final ones. After some time, we both decided to start building the Super Destroyer. We began with the galactic map. We wanted to make sure the scale was correct, so we started with the only room with windows so that we could see to the outside and make sure that, it looked right. One of the problems we ran into was that the interior is not symmetrical, meaning that I can't just build one half and then copy and paste it to the other side, so I had to build small details by hand. The computers were easy and pretty accurate. The hellpods were not. On this scale, I couldn't make a good looking hellpod. We finished all the other small details before moving on. Next, I moved to the small room between the bridge and the main area. This one really quick, as it's pretty simple. It's just an armor stand and some guns. We decided to make the exterior before finishing inside. The outside, unlike the interior, is symmetrical. This is great. We only would need to build one side, then copy it to the other side. While Red Monster Thing built the outline to the vents, I built the wing parts at the front. Getting the shape was tricky because the reference only had one angle, and it kind of looked a little bit awkward. We moved towards the back. This part of the ship was just an oval, so easy as well. Next, we move on to the wings. It was very important to make sure the wings were the right width and shape. If the scale was wrong here, the whole ship would look weird, but this ended up being easier than expected. The angle of the wings was exactly 45 degrees, which is very easy to build in Minecraft. Moving on to outside detailing, the first thing I wanted to get right was the texture of the ship. Doing this would sell the idea the ship was made of metal. Metal itself cannot be found in Minecraft besides iron and gold, so we used blocks that mimic the color of Helldivers. Although these blocks are stone and rock variants, I think they look good altogether. The next thing I wanted to get right was all the small structures seen on the outside of the ship, like the antennas and the yellow stripes. These small details make the ship feel like a functional vehicle. It sells the idea that everything is connected and has a purpose, even though I don't know exactly what the purpose is on some of the little details. While texturing the outside of the ship, I would like to thank you all. Without the support you guys have given Red Monster Thing, I don't think we would have released the project. You guys have truly been amazing. I also would like to note that when Red Monster Thing reaches 1,000 subs, he will release the world download for free. So please, if you haven't already, go check out his video and subscribe. Last thing I need to do before moving on to the engines is to add all these blocky components to the back of the ship and texture the wings. We initially got the color of these big blocks wrong. In-game, the color is similar to the base of the ship, so I would come back later and fix this. The last part of the wings essentially was to add the big yellow stripes on the side. Not the only thing we need, however, is we still need some texture. While texturing and adding the stripes, we missed the triangular pattern that is on the top side of the wings. We would add this later. Next was the engines. The engines unfortunately had a 2-block center. Getting the right width for the engines was more difficult, but understanding the placement of the engines was more important than the engines being the correct size. Even with the 2-block center, the engines came out perfectly. Red Monster Thing constructed the engines while I built more to the wings. The wings needed these support structures towards the back. After adding the beams, we finished with smaller details like pipes and texture. What I'm doing here is just changing the blocks at the top to be a more correct color. And so we went with tough, and that was pretty easy. Red Monster Thing here is making the pattern that is seen on the side of the Super Destroyer. Then I went back and made sure that the engines were also the right thing. Making the inside was probably the funnest part of the project for me. The details are very minimal on this scale, so accurate detail wasn't possible. But the funnest part of building the interior was seeing the whole Super Destroyer come together. After I would complete the interior, we would be almost done with our blueprints for the entire project. With building the interior, we needed to make sure our models for Eagle 1 and Pelican 1 would fit inside. So we pasted them first and built the room around them. One problem I ran into when building the interior was guessing the length of the room. In Helldivers, you cannot walk to the back of the ship, so we could only get screenshots from the railing. This made it hard to get small details correct, but I think it still came out good enough. We are now on the final stage of the Super Destroyer. Once we're done with the guns, this will be it. This will be everything. We've done the whole interior and we've done all of the exterior. And once we have one done, thanks to Axiom, we can just copy and paste it. And even easier, we can save it as a custom blueprint so that we can move to an entirely different world and just paste it in. I had a lot of fun making the guns and testing out new Axiom tools that I will come to rely on later on. One of them is the shape tool, and that one is one I use to make the shafts and the bases, and it works pretty good. Now, before we can paste everything into the actual map, we need to build some rocks and some bushes and some other things. The problem with the bushes is that they look like this. This is the equivalent of TV static. This looks horrible. And part of this is to blame because of the references that we've got. Something that we discovered halfway through this project is that Malevelon Creek is blue.
Why are you blue?
And so one of the things that we need to do is to go back and change some of these trees to be more, we need to change some of these trees to be correct. And so that's what I'm doing here, is just going back and changing the design that we already have and making the leaves actually blue and purple. That way that it actually looks like Malevelon Creek. I don't know what we were thinking with the gray trees. While building the test biome, I ran into a problem. The render distance for vanilla Minecraft was too low for the amount of building we wanted to do. It would glitch out during the time lapse and when rendering our actions with Axiom. This would ruin future time lapses building in much bigger areas. To avoid that specific glitch in the future, what we decided to do was get a mod that lets us have 96 render distance. This way, more than enough is rendered in while we're doing our time lapses and recording. With the ship blueprint saved and the automatons now fully complete, it is time to start the main project. Using Axiom's elevation tool, I was able to make the island pretty darn easily. All you basically have to do is just point and click, and it raises the elevation for you. Thus the name, of course. But the other tool that I used to make this part of the map was something called a noise painter, where I would pick a handful of blocks to make the specific terrain the color it is, and I pasted that around everywhere. All these little flags here are markers for where we want POIs, bases, and extraction and other places. For the first POI, I chose just a simple house with a vault at the bottom with, like, there would be super samples and other things in there that you could find. And I did this because it's the one I come across the most. For the first automaton base, we decided to build, I guess, the tank factory? I don't really know what this is specifically called. I just know it's one of the biggest ones, and that's why we chose it. And we thought it looked pretty cool, so this is something that we had to feature in our map, that this is just something that it looks really cool. And so that's one of the things that we wanted to keep. Also, everything around here, most of the rocks and trees and stuff and the gunships, they're all copy and paste from our asset world, so that's why I'm not really going to go over them, because it's just as simple as using a command to copy and paste them. We decided to take a step back and make something really simple, just to fill up some of the empty spaces of the other points in the map. That way we can make the map feel a little bit more full. So we decided to make a small camp. That way it's just really easy to copy and paste and just fill the map with some life. After pasting this camp in, we'll get into building the actual super samples. Now the super samples, I didn't actually build the main thing. All I got to do was paste in the rocks I've already created in the blueprint world, and so I got the really easy part, and Red Monster Thing had to shape the whole thing. Now comes the most difficult part of the project, and that is making all of the bushes on the ground. The reason why this is the hardest part is because when you're using the stamp tool for Axiom, it pastes on everything indiscriminately. So rocks and trees would have bushes on top of them if I use this tool. Right now we're going to ignore that problem and just build another point of interest. One of my favorite ones, which is a bunker. This one is pretty iconic as it's the only one that requires another Helldiver to open the door. The next POI is just another house, but this time it's the L-shaped one. Ooh, variation. And then making sure that there's rocks and trees and stuff. Moving on to another one. This one is the destroyed mini base, I guess. I think that's what it's called. And there's just a turret and stuff, and it was pretty simple to build. Then just copying and pasting everything else around. I'm just really trying to get as close to the end of this project as possible. Right now we've finished pretty much most of the inside part of the map. Right now what we're doing is filling the rest of the island with all of the bushes and stuff. We figured out that we could use a mask so that it would only place on the blocks that are on the floor than on the actual trees and rocks and stuff. After we finish up this medium base here, I'm going to move on to build some of the detector tower, most notably just the base. I've been known as the terraform guy, as I'm the one that has mastered the elevation tool and the smooth tool out of the two of us. I should clarify. This is pretty interesting to do because the detector tower basically sits on only on a big rock, and that's kind of it. And so making this was easier than I thought, but still time consuming nonetheless, because I still had to figure out how to do the swirl shape. After that, it was just, copying, pasting rocks and stuff, and pretty easy stuff. Now the next thing that we do is we just move over to extraction here, and the only thing I'm going to do for now is just flatten the area and getting it ready to detail. Now that he's finished with the detector tower, we can start building the actual extraction. First I start with several circles and placing a bunch of rocks. The key thing to make the extraction feel alive is to add all this clutter, explosive barrels, tanks and stuff, and fires as if there's been a huge battle. After that, we basically only have a couple of things. We have another camp to copy and paste, and we have an escape pod and some of these gunship factories to decorate. And other than that, that's pretty much it. Everything else is just copy and paste and some touch-ups. After the gunship factories and the last point of interest are made, the project is pretty much done. With the last minute touch-ups complete, the project is finished. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please sure to like and subscribe. Also, please make sure to check out Red Monster Thing's video about the project as well. When Red Monster Thing hits 1K subs, he will release the world download for free.